They're disgusting. She's Anna Navarro in your wildest imagination. You could never solo host a show. You will only ever make it as part of an ensemble, and you could never hope to achieve the success. So you can sit in your little cheap seats all day long and enjoy your little negative henpecking, but your careers are going nowhere.
Ironic that Whoopi Goldberg and Joy Behar and the rest of the ladies on The View spend their time calling Republicans the conspiracy theorists, but they have been wrong about everything they have said over the last couple of years. They likened President Trump to Hitler. They have mocked him. They have shamed him. They have lied about him consistently on their show. And it was a joy to watch them on November the 6th when they realized that tens of millions of Americans do not listen to the lies that they have spewed. These women are completely out of touch with reality. And
I think she's probably been put in there because, according to Donald Trump, she's a 10. You know that's what it is.
ABC having just paid $15 million for a defamation lawsuit would think not to engage in conspiracy theories about assassination attempts, but I guess that's too much to ask from The View. I mean, I got to ask you, because they said it, are you aware of any plots from Elon Musk to push President Trump down the stairs?
Absolutely not. Let me be unequivocally clear about that.
I would like her to do a little homework because she said something yesterday that really pissed me off. And that was, she said, there will be no wokeness here.
Oh, yeah.
Let me explain something to you. Because without that wokeness, you might not have that job.
Yeah.
Because women were not invited to that table. Women were not invited to many tables in this nation. The reason we fought and busted our behinds to make sure that you didn't have to worry about this. And now to hear you talk about it and to hear anybody talk about the wokeness was put in place for a reason.
Fasten your seatbelts, folks, because the snark queens of daytime television, the undisputed champions of latte-fueled outrage, The View, just got served something way hotter than their lukewarm takes. An alleged $800 million courtroom slap so loud it echoed through every makeup trailer at ABC. That's right, Karoline Leavitt didn't just win a lawsuit, she reportedly mopped the studio floor with those daytime divas. And in the aftermath, the ever-incisive Megyn Kelly didn't just grab popcorn, she brought napalm, dishing out insults like they were party favors at a roast. Joy Behar is probably still confused. Whoopi Goldberg is undoubtedly fuming. And Megyn Kelly is out here turning court wins into pure comedy gold. How did it all go so spectacularly wrong for The View? Stick around, because this train wreck just upgraded to first class. And the schadenfreude is simply delicious.
Punchlines, there might be consequences.
Melania Trump came out and said she's about as pro-choice as they come. And here was the reaction on The View.
I think she hates him.
Yeah, well, yeah.
Okay, so we can all agree on that. That's a given. I also think that she wants to take him out. She does not want to be the first lady anymore.
Would you look? This is a network that still runs out fact checks to these women, like it's concerned about them staying factual. She hates Trump. She doesn't want to be near him. She doesn't want to be president again. She destroyed the Rose Garden, and she hates Christmas. That is what passes for news on a network they did a presidential debate on.
It finally happened. For years, The View has seemingly coasted on a reputation built on sassy opinions, which often translates to publicly torch whoever we dislike that week. They've dished out hot takes, engaged in what critics call insanely superficial discussions, and according to many, have been consistently wrong about almost everything they've pontificated on. They likened President Trump to Hitler, mocked his supporters, shamed them, and allegedly lied about him consistently on their show. But as the transcript highlights, there's a delicious irony when tens of millions of Americans then ignore those pronouncements. Surprise. It turns out, when you casually unleash a media firing squad on people without your legal team double-checking your cute punchlines, there might just be catastrophic consequences.
Her disgusting, gross elitism and her complete out-of-touch nature with respect to the rest of the world. Sunny Hostin goes on The View and decides now would be a great time to dump all over the so-called uneducated.
What we did not have is white women who voted about 52%, right, for Donald Trump. Uneducated white women, is my understanding. You have Latino men, actually, voting more for him. And you have, and black men was not the story. We're not the story here because they voted almost 80% for the vice president.
Right.
And what glorious consequences they were. We're not talking about a little slap on the wrist, oops, our bad kind of situation. No, we're talking $800 million worth of consequences. The kind of financial haymaker that makes network CEOs cry into their very expensive parking lot spots and has sponsors suddenly developing acute amnesia about ever being associated with your show. The kind of hit that makes television executives collectively wonder if it's too late to pivot the entire program into a silent yoga retreat. This wasn't just a loss in court for The View, it was a full-blown, system-shocking reckoning. Karoline Leavitt didn't just win. She detonated a media landmine and then elegantly strutted away from the wreckage, probably in a pair of legally themed high heels.
Donald Trump will be sworn in as the 47th president of the United States, yay, on January 20th of this month. Not everyone's happy about it, and many people would like us to be more focused on the insurrection that he personally unleashed. If you ask them, as we discussed earlier, they think it's as bad as like the Holocaust, and you don't have to take my word for it. Here is Sunny Hostin of The
January
View
6th was
today.
an atrocity. It was one of the worst moments in American history. And when you think about the worst moments in American history, you know, like World War II, things that happened, you know, like the Holocaust, chattel slavery.
Yeah, the January 6th is right up there next to the Holocaust and slavery.
Enter Megyn Kelly, who saw the smoldering ruins of The View's credibility and decided to turn it into a masterclass on how not to run a talk show in the age of actual accountability. This wasn't a casual, oh, I guess I'll weigh in moment from Kelly. No, Megyn walked in like a federal auditor, armed with a clipboard in one hand and a flamethrower in the other. Her reaction to The View's expensive lesson was less commentary and more of a tactical airstrike, delivered with a side of iced coffee. She didn't just mock them. She dissected them like a frog in a high school biology class, but with the precision of a board-certified surgeon and the unadulterated joy of someone who's been circling this inevitable meltdown since 2006, armed with popcorn and a perfectly justified grudge.
And then you get this little lecture from, forgive me, those bitches over at The View.
I'm a Christian girl. When something like this happens to you, like this assassination attempt, and you say something like God was watching me, that is a very unchristian thing to say because it's very narcissistic. What? Well, God was watching me and not watching them. There's something very disturbing.
Not what he said.
I should have pulled the plug on that mic yesterday.
That's obnoxious. I don't know what church she goes to. That is how people of faith talk, and the intimation is never, he was looking out for me, but not those monsters. Right. It's no.
If sarcasm were an Olympic sport, Megyn Kelly just won the gold, 3 sponsorship deals, and the exclusive distribution rights to a smug, knowing smile. She didn't need to shout or rant. There were no dramatic eye rolls or over-the-top mic drops in her delivery. Just the slow, satisfying burn of a media veteran laying out a cold case file titled, Why You Don't Play Supreme Court in a studio filled with throw pillows and unchecked egos. Her delivery was clinical, her logic razor sharp, her smile the kind you see in documentaries right before the devastating twist ending is revealed. She didn't even need lighter fluid to set their arguments ablaze. Just facts, tone, and that uncanny razor-sharp knack for sounding like she's sipping tea while metaphorically burning down an entire house of cards.
Whoopi Goldberg was angry when Alyssa pointed out that Trump went to the funeral of Officer Diller.
Yes.
On Long Island, and Joe Biden went to a podcast. Look at Whoopi Goldberg's reaction.
Choose what you like there, but for Republicans, it was good imagery.
Really?
One day later, yes.
And I'm asking that because I was so offended, because you know who showed up.
Megyn particularly set her sights on Sunny Hostin, a figure often perceived as embodying The View's brand of disgusting, gross elitism and complete, out-of-touch nature. Kelly highlighted instances of Sunny allegedly dumping all over the so-called uneducated, such as her comments about uneducated white women voting for Trump. While Sunny was busy awarding herself the Nobel Prize in daytime smugness, Megyn Kelly was in her podcast bunker, casually reminding America that faux intellectualism wrapped in designer outrage isn't substance. It's just noise with a studio budget. If Kelly's monologue had a soundtrack, it would be the sound of egos imploding spectacularly in real time.
That hot mess that they air in the mornings, called The View, had to issue not one, not two, not three, but 4 corrections, legal corrections, 4 legal notes. We only have 3 of them on camera, but look at this.
I have another legal note.
Oh, my God.
Both Trump and Pam Bondi have denied allegations of a quid pro quo. I have a legal note.
Not to mention what they did at that debate, where once again, they tried to fact check only one side, and then when their fact checks got fact checked, they cowered. They cowered in fear. I mean, this is a pattern with them.
Let's rewind for a second. How did a political candidate, Karoline Leavitt, manage to nuke a television institution with the force of a legal battering ram? Easy. She played the long game. The View, according to this narrative, apparently didn't realize that their favorite pastime, piling onto someone they didn't like, actually had rules, and those rules come with things like defamation laws and hefty lawsuits. Leavitt's legal team didn't just fire off a complaint and cross their fingers. They came armed with an alphabet soup of legal statutes and enough documented evidence of alleged falsehoods and smears to make a Netflix docuseries. Discovery, for them, was likely a playground. Emails? Grab them. Segment scripts? Oh, look at those. Internal notes from producers that basically admitted to stretching the truth or making things up for ratings? Jackpot.
Results. Leavitt appears to be a fierce operator, but she's also 27 and arguably quite glamorous. So of course, the kind and progressive voices at The View reacted to her appointment like this.
I think she's probably been put in there because according to Donald Trump, she's a 10. You know that's what it is.
Overnight, every newsroom became allergic to adjectives. It was less journalism, more damage control with
What The View dismissed as just another Spicy Tuesday, another segment of casual character assassination, became the very foundation for one of the most expensive legal spankings in recent television history. Leavitt's team didn't just aim for an apology, they meticulously calculated damages with the precision of a Wall Street analyst. And when that mountain of evidence hit the courtroom like a meteor, the only thing left standing was Karoline's impeccably composed poker face. It was made worse for The View because they had become so comfortable in their bubble, so insulated by decades of unchecked power and a friendly studio audience, that they never saw Leavitt as a genuine threat. Big mistake. Karoline turned their smug underestimation into an $800 million PowerPoint presentation on precisely why you shouldn't mock someone who has access to very, very good lawyers. Meanwhile, Megyn Kelly was watching the entire spectacle unfold like she was at Wimbledon, except every serve was a subpoena, and every perfectly executed backhand was a court ruling. When the verdict dropped, she didn't just cheer, she practically hosted a TED Talk on media accountability, delivered through thinly veiled sarcasm and eyes that screamed, "I told you so, but let me articulate it louder for the people in the back." Megyn didn't need to fabricate outrage. She simply laid out the undeniable facts. A media empire acted recklessly, got caught with its pants down, and paid dearly, literally. She masterfully painted The View as a cautionary tale, a bloated relic of a bygone media age where on-air accuracy was apparently optional, and snark was the primary currency. Her mockery wasn't just brutal, it was forensic. And it hurt so much more because, for many, it rang true. Across the broader media landscape, the ripple effects were immediate and profound. Suddenly, hot takes got a little colder. Editors reportedly started adding more question marks to their headlines. Lawyers began mysteriously appearing in production meetings. Overnight, every newsroom in America seemingly became allergic to making declarative, unsubstantiated adjectives. It was less about journalism and more about frantic damage control with a thesaurus. Somewhere in a dimly lit, very expensive boardroom, a network VP probably flipped through Karoline Leavitt's lawsuit while simultaneously screaming into a gluten-free, ethically sourced muffin. Because here's the part that really stings for them. This wasn't even about ideology. It was about sheer carelessness, lazy jabs dressed up as informed opinions, and blatant media malpractice hiding behind cheeky catchphrases and forced laughter. And Megyn Kelly, with surgical precision, made sure to draw that line in permanent, indelible highlighter. She didn't celebrate the downfall of The View because of their politics. She celebrated it because, finally, someone held a media behemoth accountable in the only language it truly understands: cold, hard cash. When you hit a network with an $800 million invoice for being careless, suddenly everyone remembers what fact-checking is. The fallout was, in a word, catastrophic for The View. Advertisers reportedly pulled out faster than a bad Tinder date after the first awkward silence. Syndication deals turned into equally awkward, much longer silences. And in one particularly poetic, almost karmic twist, reruns of the very segment that allegedly started. This whole expensive mess got quietly scrubbed from the internet, as if pretending it didn't happen would somehow undo the financial apocalypse it triggered. Of course, The View tried to weather the storm the same way they always do, by acting like nothing happened, maybe discussing celebrity pets or the latest diet fad. But the audience noticed. The sponsors definitely noticed. The interns, who were suddenly not allowed to speak without legal review hovering over them, absolutely noticed. Daytime television suddenly looked less like a casual opinion-sharing forum and more like a high-stakes game of legal roulette. Meanwhile, Karoline Leavitt didn't just win a court case. She transformed overnight. Once perhaps seen as a young, somewhat fiery political upstart, she now carried the undeniable air of a seasoned gladiator who walked into the Colosseum, flipped a table, and coolly walked out with the emperor's credit card. She didn't just get justice, she got a headline, a massive payout, and more credibility than any PR campaign could ever buy. She turned a vicious media smear into a triumphant victory parade, proving that maybe, just maybe, being underestimated is the best disguise, especially when your opponents are too busy congratulating themselves to see the subpoenas flying toward them like legally binding frisbees. And Megyn Kelly? She didn't just support Karoline, she endorsed the entire concept of media accountability with the righteous enthusiasm of a tax auditor who just found a hidden offshore account during a routine check of a TikTok house. Her takedown wasn't just for show. It was a battle cry for every public figure who's ever been railroaded by a smug studio panel that thinks a live studio audience somehow counts as a jury of their peers. She expertly framed the case as a monumental cultural shift, the precise moment when media elites finally realized their microphones weren't impenetrable shields, when recklessness got a price tag, when SAS finally got subpoenaed. Megyn didn't just mock, she prophesied. And let's be honest, nothing scares a talking head more than the ominous ghost of lawsuits yet to come, haunting their future hot takes.